This talk is about building static websites with Sculpin, and yeah, I'm Oliver Davies. Most people probably know me from doing Drupal stuff. Marco called me the Drupal guy once when I was here, probably one of the first times I'd been to this meetup. So yeah, I do a lot of work on Drupal CMS, and that's probably what I give a lot of talks about as well. But today, as I said, we're talking about this guy, and this is the Sculpin logo mascot, which I think is called Jackson, if I remember correctly. So a little bit about it. It's a static site generator, hence the building static websites part of the title. It's a command line tool, so it's something you run inside a terminal or on the command line, rather than something with a user interface or a GUI. It's built on Symfony HTTP kernel and parts of Symfony, and uses Twig for all of its templating and everything. So HTML and Markdown and Twig go in, and then static site comes out the other end with magic happening in the middle. And even though it's written in PHP, as I said, it's using parts of Symfony, you don't need to write any PHP to actually use the site. So we'll see some examples of that as we go later on. Some of the type of things I use it for. I use it for my personal site. I was when I gave this talk before, and then I've moved it off, and now I'm back on it again. So yeah, the link at the end for my site on GitHub will be the one for the current version of the Sculpin site that's on there. I've used it for some client websites. I can't remember who I was just speaking to about it, who said, like, are we bordering on static site territory? I've had clients who update sites once every 6 years or something silly. They don't need a full-blown CMS build, so this is ideal for them. You know, they just give us the content, and then we upload one level up just from a load of HTML pages on a server, which essentially are what we get anyway. I've used it to prototype HTML templates and files for people. So before we maybe do a big CMS build, they might want to see static versions of components and templates. So I've built Sculpin sites for that. And it's nice because the templates are written in Twig, as I said, and then if I'm doing Drupal or Symfony, they're also done in Twig, so it's quite easy to port the things across. Alternatively, you can use something like Fractal or Storybook or one of other those tools as well. And for me, when I was learning this before, it was a good chance to learn things like YAML and Twig that I hadn't really used before, because they came into Drupal 8 when it was launched, and then it was a good chance to learn some of these new things before jumping in with both feet and learning how all the other stuff worked, like all the object-oriented code and dependency injection and service containers, everything. So just a way to get my feet in just a little bit and then learn some of these new things like YAML and Twig that I hadn't really used before. So how do we install it? It's a PHP project, so we install it with Composer. So we can say Composer requires Sculpin. We'll add it to a project. There is a blog skeleton project on GitHub that you can use. So you can use Composer, create project, Sculpin, blog skeleton, my blog, and that will set that up for you. And I've got one as well that I use, just my opinionated sort of template that I use personally with some slight opinions around how the templates work, etc., and content types and things. So any of those are a good option. How do we use it? The configuration files live inside app.config, and the source files live inside source. And that source is in the whole word source, not src, which confuses me a little bit sometimes. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. And then we run commands to then generate the site. So you maybe have a Markdown file or a Twig template or a HTML file or something in the source folder. We then run vendor bin Sculpin generate. That will generate the static files. So it takes all the stuff out of source, magic in the middle, static site comes out at the end. And there's other options we can pass to this. So it's got a built-in server, so we can run --server. We'll make it available on like localhost 8000 or something for it to work. We can say watch for changes. So every time I change my Markdown file or my Twig file, we're going to want to regenerate the site every time. And we can pass environments to it as well. So you get an output underscore dev and output underscore prod. So we can set different environments as well. So maybe you want drafts to show up in dev and not in prod, for example. So we can say env equals prod at the end. So here's an example of a file. So source index.md, so it's a Markdown file. And on the top of the file, we've got this YAML front matter block at the top. So it starts with 3 lines and ends with 3 lines. And that's where our sort of metadata lives. And if you've used other site generators like Jekyll and Hugo and some others, this will look quite familiar. But in this we're just going to specify which layout we're going to use. So we'll use the default layout and then specify a title. That doesn't get rendered when we do the page. It just gets ignored and just used, but ignored, doesn't get rendered. And then we've got our content at the bottom. So we're just going to have hello world at the bottom. So that's our actual page content. And this is what we get at the end. So we run a vendor bin Sculpin generate, takes that Twig, takes that Markdown, and outputs this. A little bit underwhelming in a way, but it's just a static file now at the end. I can deploy this to any server that's running as like a simple Nginx server or Apache server. I can put it on Netlify or Excel or any of those sort of static website hosting platforms. I can throw it in an S3 bucket and have it serve that. We don't need PHP anymore. We've just got a static site at the end. So it's much easier to host. So yeah, and there's a hello world message at the end. So this hello world on line 6 has now become this hello world in this paragraph tag here. So some configuration. As I said, it's stored in the app config folder, and we've also we've got a sculpin_site.yaml, and then we can also have sculpin site_environment name. So we can have global configuration and then per environment configuration. So things like a URL, for example, is going to be different on different environments, and your production is going to be different, or certain things are going to be the same. For things like my site name, which might be my website or something, that's going to be the same for all of them, right? So that can go in your Sculpin site YAML file, and then things like your URL overrides, and then things environment specific can go in the environment settings. So here's what it looks like. Again, we've got our 3 lines at the top because it's YAML at the top. And we can say this is the name of the site, this is the locale, and these are my menu links that I'm going to use. So if anyone's not seen YAML before, it's just key value pairs of things. So label key value on the right. So the name is my website, locale is this. And the things like menu links, this is just an array or a list of them, or technically it's a list of objects. So each menu link is an object and has a title and a href, and menu links is an array of those things. And then how do we use them? So if they're in the global configuration, the site configuration, we just prepend them with site dot. Yeah, and so this is Twig again, sorry, so the double curly braces are just saying print out something here in the middle. So we're just saying take out whatever we put in the previous slide again, sorry, which is name. So this name here on line 2 becomes site.name here. So my website would go there when we generate it. So yeah, this top of the page is the front matter area, as I said before. So here's some examples from a page. So we just specify a layout for it. We have multiple layouts, so it's a page or a case study or a blog post or whatever works on your project. We've got title, and we've got whether it's a draft or not, and then heading at the bottom. We have more front matter, so we can say also we can put tags on it. So it's just a list of strings. Say whether this one's tagged with Drupal, PHP, and Sculpin, and we can have even more front matter. The point is we can add whatever we want in this top section of the file. So now you can say there's tweets, and then we can say foosbar, and whatever else we want to put in here. This is completely up to you to put whatever you need to in your site configuration or your page template or whatever. So up to you. This is from testimonials page. So again, at the top of the page, we've just got testimonials, and each testimonial has a name and a role, the person's role, and some text, so something nice that somebody said, and then a URL, and they live at the top of the file in this front matter area. And then in the bottom section, I can just use Twig to say, so for each testimonial now we're not using site level configuration, we're using page level configuration here. So instead of site dot, we've now got page dot something, because we get it from this page. So we can just loop over each testimonial and then output something. So instead of having to make 3 or 100 testimonials by hand, I can just here's the data structure for what a testimonial looks like. They've all got a role, they've all got a name, they've all got some nice text. We'll just do a loop over them and output each one after the other. So again, Twig, so anything that's curly brace bracket is a do something syntax, like a loop or an if. And then double curly brace is echoing, essentially. So layouts, I quite like splitting layouts out, so you don't have to do this, but I tend to have one usually called app that just has the sort of outer structure of things, so my HTML tags and head tags, I'll usually put that into one file and then use variables to output the things like the site name and everything in there, and then we can use Twig blocks. So on line 9 we've got a block body, we say the body content goes here, and yeah, there's nothing in it by default. What then happens on another template, we've then got inheritance going on. So this default Twig extends the app template that we just saw, and then we're overriding the body block and now putting, in this case, some content in the middle. So we can nest sort of layouts within each other, essentially, by extending blocks. So again, and if anyone's not using Twig, it might be a little bit interesting. Of course, use includes. So we can include just partial bits of files. So we can say we're going to include an about author block, and we can pass variables through to it as well. So we can say with and pass variables in. So we can say that the avatar, it comes from site avatar or site work. And we can use this only syntax as well to say like only use the variables that we've passed in. Like don't ignore everything else that's done set globally. We want to be very specific about the things that we're passing in here. So. And again, we can use another for loop to say for each link we've got, we can just say include another menu link, for example. So we can use some of this sort of componentized thing that we see a lot in JavaScript or Blade. We can use that in Twig as well, and specifically we can use it inside Sculpin. Content types are nice. Like I do Drupal, so I've got this idea that I like be able to set up content types for my site. So we've got my site, I've got like talks, and I've got blog posts, and I've got my email archive. Like I'm able to separate these things out. So this is one of the things I quite liked when I saw Sculpin originally, the fact I could also mirror content types over in this system as well. So this is inside a different file. This is Sculpin _ kernel.yaml. And here we could just configure other things as well, including Sculpin content types. So I just on line 4 and then 6, 8, and 10, we're just specifying the key for each content type, whether it's daily email or podcast or post or something. And then we can specify like a permalink pattern. So it could be just the title, like the slug of the title, or it could be the base name, so it's the actual file name that you've saved it as. We can use things like the year and the month and the day as well, things like daily emails. And this is just saying like this is how we build sort of the slugs and paths for our different content types. If you don't use posts, you get a little error that says no posts were found, unless you say that you don't want them, in which case you can just set enabled is false and it then won't look for them. So custom content types, we've seen site dot and we've seen page dot, depending on where we're getting the data from. If we want to get things from content types, we use data dot this time. So this page is the open daily email archive page, and we can say on line 4 and 5 we can say use the daily email content type, so it will load them all up, and then we can use data dot the name of the thing. So if I was doing posts, I'd say posts on line 5, then data dot posts or talks or whatever. So as long as those two match up, it's fine. And again, we just loop over them and just output whatever we want. So yeah, there's not a whole sort of much to it actually in terms of that, but what we're going to try and do is then now try and get this screen onto this screen, so this will be fun, and then we can do a bit of a demo, and then we can go as long as we need to until the other guy turns up. So let's see if I can get this to work now. No, let's see. It's thinking. Hey, there we go. Okie dokie. Right, so like I said, so this is what we've got on the right-hand side is our page, and then we've got the server running on the left-hand side. So we can just see it running, got development server running on localhost 8000. So that's what's running on the right-hand side of the screen here. Let's see. And then we are inside start. So we open up this file. So you can see now that this is matching what we've got on the other side, right? So hello PHPSW is what's showing up on the right hand side here. And if we were to add something like a test in here, that's then going to rebuild. So it's watching on the side here, and then we can refresh this, and then we get test on the other side. So, hey, right. So this might look, this is what we're going to sort of try and build this thing on the right hand side quickly, and probably seems a bit familiar to everybody, given we've got a nice little speaker block of the people who've been here recently. So me, Dan, Mike, Nigel, yes. I didn't add everybody, and I didn't add every talk, but I thought I'd just add a few of them. And it was a little bit meta, because I worked on the front end of this website that's on the live site now. So it was a little bit like going down memory lane a little bit. But yeah, let's see what we can do with it. So, and we do have a working version if we need it, in case this doesn't go to plan. So yeah, we can just, the thing it doesn't do is like auto refresh unless you set up like browser sync or something. So we do need to sort of go across and then have it, make sure I press the refresh button if I need to. So cool, okay, so what we do have is just, let's have a look actually, let's have a quick look at this first. So this is the structure of the project that we've got. So there's our app folder, and we've got config, and we've got a kernel. Is this going to open? Nope. Okay. So kernel. So all I've done this time is just turn off that post content type, so it doesn't complain when I run the generate command automatically. And then Sculpin site. So I've given it a name, and I've got the locale in there already. I don't think we'll use that, but what I've then got is this list of speakers. So we've got speakers is the main key, and then we've got a list, and each person has got a name and an image URL. So we can see that we've got all those people that we just saw are listed in this thing. So yeah, let's see what we can do with that if we jump back. So what we can do is, let's start off with the H2. There's not many of us, so if you want to make this, people can shout out, and we can go, especially if I make any typos, right? People need to tell me they're doing otherwise sit here for ages and then be like, why is it not working? And it's like, you all sat there going, hey, he's typoed speakers or something. Okay, so using Tailwind CSS in this as well, which is why it looks a little bit weird. So it's like resetting all my styles and everything. So what we can do is we can use a for loop, and we can say for speaker in, and because the speakers are in the Sculpin site file, we need to then use site.speakers, and we can just end that for loop. So let's say output that then speaker dot, did I call it name? We'll find out, I suppose. There you go. Okay, so if we take, well, let's load this up on the other side as well. Do app config Sculpin. Okay, we're just squishing everything down a little bit now, but there we go. So now we can see a little bit more about what it is we're trying to do. So yeah, we can just loop over each speaker, and that's fine. Okay, so we can do this, and then let's output also the image URL. So there's all the image URLs. So I just didn't get as long as copying them and put them into my local thing, so they're all linking to Meetup, other than Kieran's, because Kieran's one wasn't working. So Kieran's is stored locally, I think. So what we can do is, let's say we're going to put them just into a list for now. So if we made a list, and I don't know why it's got VMWiki. Why does it say VMWiki on it? It should be Twig. There we go. So list item, and then for each list item, so inside our loop, we're going to make a li and at, which, because Tailwind's in the way, so it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. Hey. So let's say, let's make this a link, and let's just make it an empty link for now. But we'll just make it a link. And you know what we should do? We should make this an actual image. Let's just pop that in here. Doesn't that work? Hey, okay. So ignoring all my typing. Cool. Okay, so we've got the names, and these click, but they don't click and they don't go through to anything at the moment. So let's do some front-end stuff. So let's do size 12, and then let's do like rounded 4. We should have, yeah, so we do have Tailwind running as well, which is good. So it's running away in the background, looking for my changes and rebuilding my CSS as I'm adding them in. So that's cool. So yeah, I've actually got 2 watchers running. I've got the Sculpin watcher running that's taking the Markdown and the Twig files and building the HTML. And I've also got the Tailwind watcher that's generating the HTML. So both are running together. It's fine. Let's see. So let's say we're going to put these into a grid. Turn into a Tailwind/Vim talk as well, which is quite cool. And then let's do grid. Let's put this into 2, and then let's do a gap of like 5. Okay, so then we get our sort of links next to each other. And something I didn't mention is, or show, that this is the finished one. So again, we've got all the lists and names of the people, but each person's got their own page as well. So you can click through and see like all Rob's talks, or the ones that I've added at least anyway. So can't really do that on this at the moment, but if we move it to a content type, which we'll get to, then we can. So yeah, what we can do on this one is say like this, and we can say speaker.url. So that should update the URLs, maybe. Nope. Try again. How long is it going to be before I have to actually like look up what it is? Let's see. Speaker.url. Let's see. Is that? It's still running. Let's see. This is why I don't like doing live coding, because things never go right and they never work. Oh. Yeah, sorry, yeah. If it's a content type, then we can do that. We can't do that yet because it's not a thing. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's see. If we were to make it into a content type, then we could do that. So what we'll do is we'll quickly do a...
So what you're looking for is the URL that is generated by your content type.
Yeah. So once it's a content type, you can use that. So let's jump to speakers block, do speakers. Yeah, let's jump here quickly actually. Alphabetically. Okay. So on this one, at least we've done. Actually move this one into a Twig file. So the same idea is that we can, instead of having it be, so it could be Markdown or it could be Twig, it doesn't matter. So what then this one is I moved it into a separate file, like I said about using includes. So we can then say include this thing. So the way I've set this one up now is I've got, let's see, source, and then we've got includes speakers, and then recent speakers. So we're just saying use that file. Source speakers. So yeah, we just moved everything we just saw into a different file. Although we do have some more styles in it now, which is quite cool. I need to start it again. Just generate. Ooh. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, this is just about moving them into a different file. So all we've done is move the content from this into a different file, so if it include. So if we're going to put this block onto multiple pages now, we can do that by just using the same include block. So yeah, that's all that was going to show. Let's see, let's do the content type one, because that's the interesting part. So let's see, let's check this one out. Yeah, so there's no more speakers in this file now anymore, because I've moved them all magically. So through the magic of Git branching, we've moved them all to a different place. So what we've now got is a content type. So let's go back here again and do app config kernel. So here is this speaker's content type. So like I said, we can make up whatever content types we want. We can have whatever data or whatever values to them that we want. So this one I've just called speakers, and then said the link, this is going to be speaker slash something. So base name based on the name of the file. So we can go and do source, and then the content type things are always in this underscore folder. So it's like, if it's speakers, it's then underscore speakers, or underscore talks or whatever. And we can see now that we've got each person is their own file, their own little Markdown file. So if you open up like Dan's, for example, we can just see that I've just moved the name and the image URL into this. Trying to find who had an actual title. Let's see, I think Rob had one. Yeah, so this one we've just moved the little sort of tagline into like the body area for that one. So what we've then done is, yeah, now I've got all these source speakers markdown files, and let's go back into that index. Index, we're still using the include. So we're saying include speakers / recent speakers. So we're including that Twig partial, that include. And then now we're saying we're using speakers as the content type. And then we're passing speakers to as data.speakers. So we're just moving that, passing that data down in the same way as if you're doing it in Vue or something, you probably have like speakers equals something. You know, it's that same sort of idea. And then recent speakers, again, so we've done, just put wrapping on. Yeah, so we can do, now we've got the list of speakers, and we can then say do another for each loop. Actually, let's make that a bit bigger. Yeah, what we can then do is do a for each loop, and so we're going to loop over all of our speakers, and then inside that loop we can then use the speaker image URL, or we can use the speaker name, and then in a minute we can use the speaker URL, the actual speaker URL again. That's missing. So because it's a content type now, we should be able to do speaker.url. If it was running. Where is it? Can't type it if you want to. Yeah, okay. So yeah, now they've got a URL. So speaker / something. So when they were just in the Sculpin site file, there was no URL because they weren't a content type yet. There was no page to link to. So now they've got their own content type, they've got their own page. Now we can go to speaker / something, so that the name becomes the path. So now we can link to that. So we could use, now we can put that here instead. So our href value is speaker.url. Yeah, so now if I hover over each one, so we've got Dave, now we've got / Dave Lidman in the corner, and then if I hover over Derek or Dan, see the URL changes. Now we can click through any of these now and then go through to a blank page because we haven't set that template up yet. So all that there, so there's nothing to show, but there is a page, right? We're not getting a 404 or anything. There is an actual HTML thing that's there. What probably should show is this output dev folder. So like I said, when you run Sculpin generate, it's going to generate the static file. So this is where they live. So because I'm running the dev environment, it's going into output _dev. If it's prod, it would go into output _prod. but this is all we get. So we get our index of HTML, we get our speakers, and then each speaker has got their own folder, nothing in, and then each one's got their index of HTML file. So let's see if I can find a way of editing this. Yeah, so this is all there is for this file. So I can just take these HTML files and upload them onto a server. Like I said, it could be an S3 bucket, it could be anywhere. Like, it doesn't need to be any PHP now, because there's no PHP front. We've just got HTML and a bit of CSS that we want to use. Let's see, so we can do, because it's an array, we can do a sort on it. So we can say, like, if we want to sort them alphabetically, we can do that as well. So if you've got filters in Twig, so that's what the pipe separator is doing, that we can attach filters to it. So actually, in fact, what we probably should do is, like, if we don't have any, we also pass through a default. And I actually don't know where the pipe is on this one. So yeah, we could do this, and then paste that there. No, so if we don't have any speakers, we just make it a default, an empty array. Otherwise, you can't sort it. You get an error like must be traversable, and if it's null, then you can't sort on null. So at least it's always an array now. And then we can use the cool spaceship operator, which I don't get to use very often. So you can use this now. And in the newer versions of Twig, you'd say whether it would be greater than or less than, essentially. So is this one newer than this one? So that's nice. Now you have to return like an integer rather than a Boolean. So that returns back whether it's the right one or not. If I wanted to order them the other way around, then I could change it and it would work. So back to this one. So this is why they're all ordered by names. If we got rid of that. Let's speak. I've forgotten to type. Goodness me. Speakers. Yeah, if you just leave it over each one. Oh, okay, it's going to be that because they're in alphabetical order in the folder, so they're probably going to end up that way. So let's say we did want to sort of reverse them. We could let's say whether B is greater than A, maybe. There you go. So now they're in a different order. So if you went on a slight tangent, this is the thing when people see like all this HTML and all this CSS, especially you've got things like Tailwind, you've got classes like Flex and FlexCol and Gap3. People see that you've got like 100 articles or 100 speakers on a page, and they're like, look at all that HTML and all that duplication and repetitiveness that you've got. But we've only got that once, actually. Because we've got it inside a for loop, that's what we've got. Like this div is the same div for all of them, but because we're using a loop, then yeah, we don't. So if we wanted to change it, and if we wanted to go, let's see, if we made them not rounded full, for example, and then made them square, no, we only need to do that once in one place. So yeah, it's sort of a anti-argument. If people are like, yeah, look all, you've got rounded full, and there 100 times, and I'm like, well, yeah, yes, in the actual end HTML, that's true, but when I'm developing, I'm using my templates and things, and you don't need to. And let's see, let's go back here. Let's have another look. So we'll only show if the speakers. So I've got just like wrapping it in an if statement, essentially, to say like only show speakers block if there are speakers. Show that in a minute, and then each speaker goes to their profile, but we just saw that anyway. So let's check out this one now. Local changes would be overridden. Yeah, of course they would. Okay, let's jump back onto this one. Show speakers, speaker name. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. All we got at the beginning is right at the top. If speakers is not empty, so don't show a speaker's title if there aren't any speakers. Like we've got speakers, but it's good. It's good to be defensive, I guess, in a way. So yeah, just like don't render it if it's not there. So let's see. Start this back up again. Generate. There we go. Cool. So back to this again. So yeah, now we've linked all the names up again, and we've got the URLs working. We can click now on any of these people and see. And let's click on. I don't know. Click on Rob. Rob's given me a few talks recently. Yeah, so now we're just, let's have a look. If we open up the actual speaker template, it probably makes more sense. Speaker, Twig. So yeah, speakers have got their own layout. So they're not using the page layout, they're using the speaker layout, and the speaker layout extends the default one. So if I do like default.twig, like this is the default. This is my default layout that they all use. So I'm overriding this body a little bit to set some padding and some margin on the left and the right and the maximum width on the page, and adding this content wrapper block. So we're extending that, and then what we're then doing is saying inside the content wrapper block, put this stuff. So that's what's going on there. And then because we're using things on this page, we're now using page dot something. So Rob's one again was Rob. Yeah, so we've got name, we've got image URL. So those are the two things that get used there. So page.name, which is sort of speaker.name, but it's inside the context of the page. And then we can output the content block here. So this would be the same actually as doing block content again, and then ending it. Like that would do the same thing, I think. Yeah, so same thing. Two ways of doing the same thing. Twig. Turn to a Twig talk as well. So yeah, now we've got a page for everybody, and we can boot this up again. So this will boot up both my watchers actually, because like I say, I need the Sculpin watcher, and we also need the Tailwind watcher both be running, because at the moment the pictures are bloody massive. There we go, that's a bit better. So,
What's the Tailwind watcher doing?
sorry?
What's the Tailwind watcher doing? Compile it down the Tailwind just for the only user.
Yeah, so Tailwind has got its own sort of config file. So it's got content on line 3 that says where to look for things. So we're saying look for any classes that it generates inside this folder. So source slash start or something.
What's in the file and saying, I'll include those.
Yeah.
Makes it a nice small record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if I didn't run that, that's why the image was massive, because I had like a size 24 class on it, but it didn't know what that was because it hadn't generated it yet. So in terms of what it's actually running, just file, yeah, it's running, I've got a command thing. So I'm passing some different arguments to it based on whether it's dev or prod. Eventually, someone minify it if it's prod, and then watch if it's not, and then pass through. So when I'm running just something, it's running this just file, which is quite a nice little tool that I like. So yeah, and then start is running. Start is doing this. So it's like just generate the Sculpin, watch the CSS, and then just wait. So that's why I'm getting both watches to run simultaneously. So that's looking better. Let's see. This is just an alias again. Let's see. Show talks. Let's jump there. So we should now be able to go, if I start it again. Cool. Okay. So now we've got talks by person. So even though we've got each talk on there, so I've got Rob's one again. Rob. Talks. Where do the talks live? Sculpin site. Okay, there's the talks. So I've put the talks in at like the global site level. Like again, this could be its own content type potentially, but I've just added them in here for this example. So each talk is a list. Talks is a list, and each talk has a title and a speaker. So this is the talk we do now, and then this is the other one. We'll have to update these afterwards. And Rob's got introducing domain driven design, etc. Then we've got the speaker. So it's actually quite nice. Like from usually I'm like building things in the UI and building like kind of complex entity reference fields and things. It's quite nice to sort of just do things in a little bit of a simpler way in some ways when I'm doing this. But yeah, so we're going to try and match things based on that name and then this name. So we'll try and match the speaker name and the actual speaker name, if that makes any sense. So if we go back into the Twig file for this, let's move down a little bit. Yeah, so we can also use a filter. So we can say for each, we can get each talk. So because they're global, we can say site dot something, site dot talks, and then we can then filter them based on whether that talk, the speaker's name in the talk matches the page name or not. So yeah, and then if talks is not empty, we make the new section again. This could be its own little component again as well. I could move this into include potentially and say, call it talks by speaker or something if I wanted to extract it out and give it a more descriptive name. And then yeah, once we've got talks, we can then say for each one, we'll make a list and then yeah, output the name of the talk. So we can use dump here as well, I think. So we can do talks. Let's see. Yeah, so we can sort of essentially just like a var dump thing in here. So you did want to just see what was in there, we can just dump them out like that. And then, yeah, of course, if you did want to just like not do this and just show all of them, if you took this filter out, it's going to show all the talks because we're not filtering them out anymore based on the speaker name or not. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like I say, and we also haven't written any PHP yet at all. All we've written is like Twig and Markdown, which is quite interesting. Although one thing I do like is like if I want to extend it, I can, and that's something I have done actually. Is when I've written custom, like this works for like does this string match this string. But if I did want to make a function called get talks for speaker, like I could write a Twig extension that does that, and I could write tests for it, and I could use it. But yeah, you could also just do it like this and just start doing weird looping and filtering and things on my and making it work like that as well. So, yep, that's that. I don't think there's anything else that's worth showing. Dates to talks. Yeah, so this is the last one we've got. Oh, we've got Twig on that. Okay, makes sense. So now what I've done is start this up again. Right, so instead of them doing them alphabetically, sorting them by the name, I've added dates to the talks, first of all. So Sculpin site. So now each, whereas before we had title and speaker, now we've got a date. So we know the date that each talk was given on, including today, and then Rob's talk. This one obviously was last month, so that's got January, and then these are the November ones. So now we've got the dates in them, we can then sort them now based on the talk dates. So I'm on the top because it's now, and then last month's was Rob, and then whatever. So again, what we can do in our Twig file, do's and speakers. Let's see. So yeah, this is where we start getting slightly fun, loopy things. So yeah, speakers and dates. So what we need is a way of keeping the speaker object sort of on its own, and then also having the dates, and then so we can do filtering or sorting rather on the dates. So what I'm going to do is make this sort of speaker and date object, I guess, first of all, and then sort them by the day, and then pluck the speaker back out again. So yeah, this works. Again, if you wanted to, you can make a Twig extension and make it a thing and write tests to it and everything, but this also works. But yeah, take your pick. So yeah, empty array to begin with, and then we can loop over the speakers, and then we can find the talks again for each speaker. So same thing we were doing before, and we can just filter them out based on whether the names match or not. So we know that for each person we've got all their talks together. Because they're ordered based on the date in the right order, we can just say get the first one. So the most recent one is the first one is the most recent one, and again we can use another first filter to say give me the first one. Yeah, and then we can do this. So this is what will populate the speakers and dates part of it. So now, at the end of this, we've got a list, an array of a speaker and a date together multiple times. Then we can sort them. So So we can then say sort them based on the date of the talk. So yeah, we can do this cool little spaceship operator thing and check whether it's which things are in the right order. And again, we want to do the most recent ones first, so that's why we're doing b.date and then a.date rather than the other way around. And we call that one sorted speakers, and then for each speaker in sorted speakers, and then we can just use column, which just gets the speaker information back out again, just drops the date because we don't need it anymore. And then we're into the same thing we saw before with the loop and the URL and everything. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so yeah, I'm taking any of these now. I'm going to just see the Vardum still. I've still got that in there. And then all the talks. Okay, let's go back and put that back quickly. Let's reset. There we go. So now we're back to just having just Rob's talks on Rob page. And yeah, again, if this was a content type, we could then link that back to that as well. But it's not, because we always put it in the slide thing. Actually, show you something. If I go here, this is my site now. Talks. Yeah, so I'm also doing some. Let's go doing that side now. Some slightly weird things with looping, like yeah. This is my personal site. So the talk count is 0 to begin with, and then for each talk, I'm then saying if it's greater than today, or if it's today or less than today, then we'll add that. We'll +1 the talk count, and then yeah, just by the end of it, I know how many talks I've given. And again, for some reason, since I've installed VimWiki, it's confused things. There we go. So we've got double curly braces here. I can just like output the talk count variable. So if I can like just say like, how many talks I've got or given, which one is it on? Yeah, scroll down. Talks. Yeah, it's like I've got this on the top. It's like, this is how many talks I've done. I don't need to calculate that manually because I've got this loop that's going on doing it for me, which is quite fun. So, at least I think it's quite cool. Okay, I do want to say a little bit about the extending part again, and then if you've got questions still, we can jump and do more questions. Oh, I've lost one. 10. Where are we going? 4. Okay. So, right, so I said about extending a little bit. And I said, yeah, all that crazy looping and filtering and everything, we could make a Twig extension for that. And this is something that was quite appealing to me, is that even though like you don't have to write any PHP to use it, like it helps to know Twig, but if I needed to extend it, I can. You know, so I know how to write Twig extensions. I know how to write PHP unit tests. Like I know the ecosystem. If I was using like Jekyll, which is written in Ruby, or using Hugo, which is written in Go, like I'm less familiar with how to do that type of thing with this. But yeah, this is PHP, and I know, and it's Symfony, and particularly it's Symfony's service container. So we say I know how to write service classes and wire them up into Symfony's container. So this is something I did on the early version of my site actually. So inside the Sculpin kernel file, I can add additional services using the services keyword in the same way I would in a Symfony project or Drupal project. And I can say that this is my custom Twig extension, and it's called a talk extension, and we tag it as a talk extension. And yeah, it's its own little open source packagist thing, right? So I can release it as its own little package. I can then add it on. This is the Markdown bundle. So I've now got, where I've had pipe first and pipe sort, I've added one now called pipe Markdown because there wasn't one before. So if I'm getting Markdown out of something, I can then just like run the Markdown parser on it. So I can do that, and I know how to do it because it's PHP. So even though I haven't had to write, like I said, any write any PHP, I can extend it if I need to, which is really cool. Then there's a secret file that I found, which is this Sculpin kernel.php file. And here then you just define what your additional bundles are. So if I'm using the Markdown bundle, I add it in here. If I'm using the talk extension bundle that I wrote, I put that in here as well. It's just an array of additional things that it's a fairly simple thing to extend and add. Extending Sculpin Twig Markdown bundle. So that's cool. So yeah, if you don't like looping and you don't like crazy filtering and stuff inside your templates, you can do this as well. You can write tests for it this way. You know, it'd be quite hard for me to test whether the number of talks or whatever it is, or do Rob's talks show up on his page, and it's quite hard to test from a Twig template without doing something a bit more like front-end, end-to-end tests or something. But at least if you're doing it this way and saying get talks for speaker or something, then yeah, we can write tests for that. So yeah, Sculpin.io is the main website. It's been a project, as I say, it's been 10 years since I gave a talk about it here. So, and it was Bo Simonson who originally wrote it, and not as involved with it recently. But yeah, it's free, and there's other people maintaining it now. So now we've got PHP 8 compatibility and everything in it as well. Demo code is on GitHub. As my personal site code is on GitHub. Or admire my crazy looping and filtering. And then the Sculpin skeleton is on there as well, if people want to take a look at that's my opinionated one. Of course, there's others as well. So, yeah, thanks. I don't know how we got for time or what we want to do in between. But, we've got questions, or I can do some more demoing if people want. We can rebuild the whole website if we need to. Mm-hmm. You got a question?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Jigsaw,
Yeah.
how does this compare? Or is this just Twig and it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, for those who don't know Jigsaw is a similar static site generator that uses blade files
Mm-hmm.
and is a bit more PHP. It's but you can do Markdown, you can do quite a lot of stuff in it. I mean, it's quite similar in that respect.
Yeah, I think they're similar, and they do sort of essentially the same thing in terms as much they both generate static sites. I think the preference then is, do you prefer doing Twig and doing that more of a symphony-based one, or do you prefer doing Laravel, and then you could probably go and use Jigsaw? I think it's pretty much down to that sort of preference. They do essentially the same thing. Sorry? I don't know, Jigsaw's, Adam Wathan do it, I think, maybe originally to begin with, but I think Titan maintain it now. So yeah, I think that's the only sort of big sort of, same sort of idea. You've got this sort of front matter area at the top, you know, again, if you're doing Hugo or Jekyll or something, it'd be pretty much the same. And then, yeah, you've still got the extend part, but it's just using Blade as its templating engine instead of using Twig. And then instead of Twig blocks, you've got at section. So yeah, it's pretty much similar but different. So I suppose that's your preference. It's like, you know, if you're a Laravel developer or more familiar with Blade, then you're probably going to want to use Jigsaw. Whereas if you're more familiar with Twig, you might want to use Sculpin.
I built a site with Jigsaw using the repo as version as CMS.
Mm-hmm.
So you were writing Markdown into the repo and then having a pipeline that triggered on commit, which then did the build and then the publish.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, we were saying earlier on about, like, do you need, if you're building a site for someone, how much do you need the CMS for if they're only doing updates or if you're doing updates for them? So is that thing about maintaining, like, if you've got, I mean, I've got lots of sites historically built for clients and Drupal, and they barely touch the content if at all. But what you've got then is a security vector of coming to make sure the site is updated.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, bad things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going into the defensive of going, well, I'll manage the content, or, you know, like, pipe the content in from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
being able to write, I mean, it's a bit of a leap to get your clients to do commits, but when you can do create a new page, it's kind of, you know, like, how much training do you need?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've done it.
Clients slightly tech-savvy,
Mm-hmm.
then that's quite a good way around. But ultimately, if you are just getting copies from someone,
Let's see if I can find this quickly. Yeah, this is true. But they're also then yeah, you know, they're also very performant because it's just HTML. You don't have to wait for PHP. Let's see. Do I have these still?
About being able to do a commit and then like seconds later seeing it actually published on the remote URL and stuff.
Yeah.
The guy was publishing onto what's Google's service?
Yeah. This is one that I built for the client. It was quite similar actually. And then they were like, "Oh, we wanted to do this, 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 and this, and this," and I was like, "No, like you really just need a static site." They wanted to put their training timetable or something on it, and that was pretty much about it. So yeah, I was able to do this, and then yeah, let's see. So we've got, yeah, like I trained this guy how to use it, and then I was like, just worry about the bits between the lines. Like, just you worry about the top bit. You put in the times and the days, and then you know the start times or whatever. And like he was able to do that and change that bit, and then like the other bit then is like the second half of the page is the Twig bit, where it's like now we're going to sort of loop over it and build. Let's see, what are we doing? Yeah, so like for each day in this, and then include, it's like all the logic for like actually displaying the timetable is in the second half of the file. Like you don't need to worry about that bit. You don't need to change that unless you're going to want to change the actual page, or you might break it. But like, yeah, if you're just wanting to change, you know, add a new class or take a class away or something, like just like edit this file. I think he was doing it on GitHub directly as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing because if they do break it, you can just roll it back.
Yeah.
Controller already anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, you're just going in and changing these sorts of lists and things at the top, and I was like, yeah, this is how YAML works. So you need to get like your spacing right, and then this is what the little line means at the beginning, and that's what the class is. And he was able just to copy paste and go. So yeah, it's hosted on Netlify, I think this site is, because it's just someone that needs static hosting. GitHub Pages will do it as well. Like just have a GitHub Pages site with things, with static things on it.
In that file, you've got the YAML, and then you've got the Twig at the bottom.
Yep.
Couldn't you just separate them completely and just keep the Twig away from the guy completely?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no chance he can hit some funny keystroke and
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you could have done that as well. Yeah, I could have moved it at the moment. It's in. Yeah, it's in. I could move it into like the global one probably.
Keep it well away from them.
Yeah, that would be a good point. For my site, then I've sort of extracted them out a little bit further. So let's see. So if I go into like app config in here, I don't know why I'm doing it on GitHub. I've got it open in. It's quicker for me to do it this way. Yeah, so on this one, like because it was getting quite a big file, you know, and that would be the same if I put all the timetables and stuff in a folder. Like in one file, it would be quite a big file. So yeah, this one I've just used import and just said like, yeah, it's import metadata and menus and testimonials and things from a different folder. So now I've got like testimonials are in testimonials. Yeah, well, that one. So yeah, just split them out into their own little thing, and it's just a bit easier to manage. We can use this percentage sign syntax as well to reference other variables inside as well. So in this one I've got a different assets URL for production, so they go onto an S3 bucket. So so that's the one way I found to split them out and separate them out anyway. So yeah, it's a good point.
Isn't YAML a bit fussy? If you don't have the right number of indents or something, does it go a bit crazy?
Yeah, that's I think that's what most people's problem is with it, isn't it? With it.
I was actually thinking why using YAML, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just a personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, go to my gym owner client and yeah, use XML. Yeah, I think that's one thing. I've not looked at it for a while, but I think it was very YAML driven, and I think there were issues on GitHub for Sculpin, particularly like support JSON files or something as well. I don't know whether it got merged, but yeah, so it's different. But I liked it because then when I started doing Drupal 8, you know, that's when we started having YAML files for things. They weren't in Drupal 7 at all, so I was like, oh, there's a new thing I need to learn. So I can learn it in this, and then learn it there before jumping into everything else. So yeah, it would be quite nice to have that as an option. It's quite it wasn't maintained for a long time, for a while, in terms of like having updates and things, but now GitHub, Sculpin. Yeah, I'm not really sure who's maintaining it at the moment. Gone through a few people. Yeah, 3.2.2. Let's see. So yeah, 3 months ago. It's been, so yeah, there are commits going on, but yeah, we can see whether if there's a big feature for like, yeah, support JSON or something that would be quite cool. No, it would be quite interesting to see, and then, you know, what else could we do with it? But also, I quite like that it's simple, and, you know, do you want to add another thing to load and then have to maintain that code as well? You know, that's yeah, another discussion to have for, you know, who's ever maintaining it these days.
I think it's quite cool that you've got a project now that says 9 years ago, and it's still useful.
Yeah, it's long.
Reflections on that. Is there anything you want to put in that you haven't put in yet?
I don't know. I'd like to see other things. I'd like to see the JSON stuff go in maybe at some point, but I don't know. Sculpin's an interesting project, because I say Bo Simonson started it as a project, and he's got a whole talk that he's given about, because he looked at static sites like Jekyll and then wanted one in PHP and then sort of built this. It's been around for a long time. That's how I think Chris Tankersley maintained it for a little while, or had some involvement in it, and then yeah, brilliant. Yeah, is the one sort of maintaining it at the moment. So yeah, I'd like to see more. I think it's just keeping up to date with, I think, getting onto PHP 8 was a big step forward. So I think obviously we couldn't, there was a lot of deprecation notices coming out of it for a while. So they're doing that. There's been some performance, like if you're using Watch over time, it would seem to just get slower and slower. So I think they've been fixing some of those things now. So I think it's pretty feature complete in terms of what it sort of does. I quite like the fact it's sort of, there aren't too many options, but yeah, you can extend it, like I said, with a Twig extension or something. So yeah, you could probably write your own JSON file loader or something that could work, and see if you can get it to contribute it up. So yeah, I've looked at, like, can I contribute? Like I did contribute that Markdown bundle, is the one I tried. So I've just made it its own package for now, so it's quite useful. But yeah, I quite like the simplicity of it compared to, like, I did some work with Astro recently, and that's all done in JavaScript, and you've got a little MDX and all the, you know, JSX for templates and everything. So I quite like like Twig to me is a lot simpler, because I'm used to it more so than some of the other things. So.
I was going to say, in JavaScript, they rediscovered static site generation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This project had a whole plan.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I think it's just, yeah, the fact I can just build it locally and then either get it to build on CI and push somewhere, or it's super performant because it's just HTML. You can do it on any static site or HTML thing, like GitHub pages. I think it's a big, you don't have to worry about spinning up a whole Drupal site and then have to worry about, like, where do I put my database, or have to spend money on platform, SH or Acquia or any sort of big hosting. Like, we can host this for free on GitHub, which is really cool.
It's just how quick it is to change as well. So like the whole thing, I need to change some content, and if you've got it hooked into a pipeline on the replay, for example, like the magic of seeing that change is that it's almost as quick as they're saving on your machine.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that how you manage deployments for your own site? Do you use GitHub Actions?
Yeah, at the moment I just generate them locally and push them up just as files and deploy them onto a server. But I've done it with the older version of the site, did it through CI pipelines and GitHub Actions. So we just would build and then upload it somewhere, or you could push it to a different branch with GitHub pages. You could have like a built branch, and that would work. A lot of them have integrations with things. So if you want to use something like Netlify, for example, it will link together itself. So anytime you push a commit to GitHub, Netlify will be looking for that, and then will run. You'll have a Netlify TOML file or something that tells you how you build it. And so you say, this is the command, and it will then build it and deploy it for you. So yeah, it's really quite nice if you can do it that way as well. just haven't got around to redoing it on mine at the moment. But yeah, it's just HTML and CSS and images at the end of the day, so it makes things a lot easier.
It's all like compiled down to a single directory, right? And you just push everything up, overwrite everything.
Yeah, just put everything in. So if you're going to run, so I run a prod deployment, so I run it with the env-prod at the end, so any draft pages don't get deployed. So yeah, anything then that's in that folder will get pushed up. So let's see, probably don't have any in this one. I'll have a generate. So this one's trying to run it because I haven't passed it any environment variables or anything. But if I was to do like, I think it's appy-env, I think I've called it, production. So yeah, I've just hidden the whole sort of longer command behind run. So that's all that's doing. So now I've said production, it's then not watching or waiting for anything. So we'll just have a thing, and then yeah, now we've got output_prod. So that's the production version of the site with everything. And then just do like a tree. And then, yeah, so there's my index.html file. So that's the main sort of home page. And then each sort of sub-page has its own folder. So you can go to like podcast page. And then like that's got its own folder and its own index.html. So yeah, it's just HTML all the way down at that point. So there's no more Twig, no more PHP, no more Markdown in this. It's just like there's the images. So I've got the images that go along with the recommendations, and I've got like a favicon and other stuff. But in terms of actual the actual pages themselves, yeah, they're just HTML. So we can also then just open up one of these and go podcast. Yeah, so Mike's one. These Mike's here. There we go. So this is the actual generated thing now. So it's taken everything out of all my other pages. Like most of this is all the same regardless. But also this canonical link changes because it depends based on the page. All this meta stuff is the same. Let's have a look. You'll see this URL is different again. And then title, blah, 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 blah. And then here's the top banner area. Yeah, so it's like there's no Twig in this file anymore. It's just HTML and it's just things. So yeah, it's like I keep saying it's a bit underwhelming. It's just a HTML file, right? In the end of the day. But the actual one then, that gets changed from this. So it's got a date, it's got a topic, it's got who the guests are, it's got the transistor ID, and then we've got links. So plug in Mike stuff here. So yeah, again, links are each, like there's the title and there's the URL, and yeah, it's like this is for each podcast episode I'm doing. It's built up in this way, and then podcast episode has a template, we extend page, and then we say this is the episode number with people in it, and then we set some meta descriptions. But again, none of this is in the generated stuff at all. And then, yeah, if we've got a page, so if I don't have a transistor ID, so transistor is the podcast hosting thing that I use. So if I don't have one, it'll just ignore this bit, and this bit just doesn't gets ignored. We have put the parent template here, and then we can say for each link we've got, again, we can just say make that list of links that we've got, and yeah, use the first value or the second value. So yeah, all this gets, it's just my local development stuff, and then when you run that output prod example, it just generates the HTML and then just deploy that wherever, and then you get a page at the end. That's pretty cool.
What was interesting when I saw there was you had that, was obviously some sort of gym or something whereby you had the timetable and stuff like that. Great stuff. What if they turned around and said, well, we want a contact us page or something on there as well? Is that something you can handle, or is that a case of, right, that's the end of that, that's a static site, we're now jumping over to something else? You can't do that, basically.
Yeah, so what I've done, the way I organise mine is I've got Sculpin kernel. So I've got a content type called pages, which you don't need to do, but I just like putting them together because I've got a lot of pages on mine. So I can go and then just edit something inside source pages, pages. Right, I just group them together in here. So each one of these will become its own page because I've set the permalink on line 5 here to be just the base name. So I'm just saying, like, you don't have to. If you just wanted to be just a normal page, you could just make it inside source. But I like just grouping them together because I've got a lot of them. So yeah, any of these will just become their own page then. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's probably more about how do you deal with the dynamic nature of a contact page.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. How do you deal with the dynamic? Yeah. Well, I've used, if you've got a tool, something like, I think some of the ones are now. Like, you even just embed a Google, you can either embed to make a Google form or something, and embed that in, like that would work. And if you've got like particular ID or URL, have I got it on one of these? Maybe, no. One of these I've got like an actual URL or like form. No, some I've got a form URL on, and I just pick the one that I want for that. Oh, sorry, I've got one. Page. Yeah, so this one I'm just embedding a Google form in it like that, and that's one way of doing it. Or what was it? I'm sure there was a thing you could do, and as long as you then just sent the action thing on the URL, on the form URL, you set it to some other service,
Yeah.
and it would work.
I've done that before using EU's client-side validation to make sure your form is right to send, and then just type that in terms of captions the information. Send it off my phone now, but I still get occasional messages on it. It's basically it's a CRM, so you can send your form out with the fields tagged, and then go into the CRM, and then you've got. It might just notify me that I've filled up the amount of contacts I've got in there, and just get spam to it.
Yeah.
That is a side effect. You've got to be a bit clever with that kind of stuff. But it's a good trade-off really, because most of the time you don't really need that much dynamic stuff.
Yeah.
I think I ended up just dropping you a email, like, you might don't want to run a contact me. I'm not even going to make it a mail thing, right? If you want to contact me,
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone down the same route actually. Yeah.
Spam down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Netlify forms works, you just you add a Netlify attribute, and then it sends it off to the same thing. So there's others as well. So Bo was looking at something, but yeah, most of them. I just use embed a Google form usually, or just link off to one. seems to work.
I mean, ultimately, you want data.
Yeah, don't contact me, please. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Has anyone got any questions? As you may have guessed, I don't think we've ever been having some kind of transport nightmare. My friend's still on his way.
We'll all be in the pub. Yeah.
Not got a takeaway.
As soon as he gets here in time, I'll be
Yeah.
So I just feel bad. We got here. But
That's good. Yeah, I was going to try and find this actually.
It's incredibly superfluous. Why is it called Sculpin? What does that mean?
I don't know. That's a good question. I can't remember exactly why. I'm sure Bo's going to talk about it before at some point. But the problem I've always found is you sort of Google for it, there's like a beer called Sculpin or something as well, or you get like this whole thing. And
Maybe that's as far as it goes.
yeah, I mean, Sculpin.io. Let's have a look. Yeah, but like Bo's wife did it, and she did a lot of the drawings for some of the conferences and stuff as well for a while. Did like this whole open source art thing. That's not even what a Sculpin looks like. Sculpin is like this horrible looking fish. That's something. Let's take that off. yeah, that's like that. That's like nothing. You look at like images, right? You get things like this, and it's just no, yeah, like looks nothing like them. Yeah,
It's
it's
not as horrendous. I mean, this week we've seen Snappy, that sort of turtle that's turned up. Have you
Yeah.
seen that one? I mean, like, if you're going for pretty looking creatures, he's going to be way over there. But they just call him, was it Snappy or Fluffy or something like that?
Yeah.
Fluffy, yeah, you're right.
yeah. I have to find. Yeah, it's just the talk that Bo has given about it. I can't remember if he says why he called it Sculpin, but it's just quite interesting sort of talk about the backstory and yeah, it's just quite interesting. Yeah, this talk was 2015, so yeah, it's been around for a while. Yeah, it's Bo started it, Bo's project. Cool.
Yeah.